Take 1. So our objectives for 4-3, use long division to divide a polynomial by another polynomial. Then we're also going to be able to use synthetic division to divide a polynomial by another polynomial of the form x minus k. So if it's in this form, x minus k, we'll use synthetic division. And then use the remainder theorem. So as we go through this, we're going to start with long division, which you learned back in 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and review that. So, long division. If you remember back when you first learned how to do long division, if we took 3,000 for 34,567 and we divided it by 5. So if you remember to do this, what you would do is you would take what you were dividing by and it would go on the outside. And then on the inside, you would put the 34,567. Then remember you would say, well, and then 5 does not go into 3, so you would skip over and go 5 goes into 34. And 5 goes into 34 6 times, so you put the 6 up above. Then you took the 6 times 5, which is 30. And then you subtracted, and you got 4. And then you brought down the next part of the problem. So we bring the 5 straight down. Then we go 5 goes into 45 9 times. Then again you take the 9 times the 5, which is 45, and subtract. And you get 0. Then you would bring down the next number. So 6. And 5 goes into 6 once. And 1 times 5 is 5. And you subtract and get 1. And then you would bring down the 7. And then 5 goes into 17 3 times. And 3 times 5 is 15. And you subtract and you get 2. And then what you were left with was the remainder. And so the remainder would go up here, and you'd put it over what you divided by. And so 34,560 divided by 5 would be 6,913 and 2/5. So that's what you learned way back when. Well, we can do this same thing with polynomials. So we're going to take the polynomial 2x to the 4th plus 3x to the 3rd plus 5x minus 1, and we're going to divide that by the polynomial x squared plus 3x plus 2. So we've got the steps here for long division. The polynomial being divided by goes inside. So we're dividing this polynomial by this one. So this goes on the inside of the function, or this division sign. 2x to the 4th plus 3x cubed. Now, you see we don't have an x squared. It's a good habit to get in to just put all the powers, even if they're not there, because you'll get things that go underneath that. Plus 5x plus 1. So we're going to put that on the inside. And then the polynomial being divided, that we're dividing by, goes on the outside. So we're dividing by x squared plus 3x plus 2. So that goes on the outside of the division sign. So, this next part says, find the factor that when multiplied to the first term of the polynomial you're dividing by. So we're going to have to find the factor that when we multiply it by this x squared gives us this 2x to the 4th. Put that on top and multiply it by the polynomial you're dividing by and place it underneath the polynomial you're dividing, then subtract or add the opposite. So, a lot of words here, but let me show you what that means. So we're going to take, and we have to find what we multiply this x squared by to get 2x to the 4th. Well, the number in front's 1, and we need to get a 2, so we need to multiply that by a 2. And then what do we have to multiply x squared by to get to x to the 4th? And that would be x squared. So that's the first part. Find the factor that when multiplied to the first term of the polynomial you are dividing by gives you the first term of the polynomial you are dividing. So, we found this factor that times x squared gives us this first term here. So we put that on top, which we did, the 2x squared. And now we multiply that. We're going to take this 2x squared and multiply it by this whole polynomial. So 2x squared times x squared is 2x to the fourth. And 2x squared times 3x, 2 times 3 is 6. And so we get 6, and x times x squared is x cubed. And then 2x squared times 2 is 4x squared. That's why we added that 0x to the squared, because we're going to get a x squared there, and we want to line everything up. So now when we get this, just like we did before with the long division, we subtract. Now the only thing is, you can subtract this whole thing, but again, remember subtraction is the same as adding the opposite. So since I'm going to subtract this, my suggestion would be to change it to addition and change all the signs. You can subtract if you want, I just think it's easier to do this way. So now we add these together. So 2x to the fourth minus plus a negative 2x to the fourth will cancel, which will always happen. Those should always cancel the first terms. Then we've got 3x to the third minus 6x to the third, which is a negative 3x to the third. And then 0x squared plus a negative 4x squared is a negative 4x squared. And then, just like you did with regular long division, you bring down the next part. So I'm going to bring down this 5x, so plus 5x. So now, after you subtract or add the opposite, you repeat the process with what's left. So I'm going to do the exact same thing over again, but now I'm going to use, say, what do I have to multiply this x squared by to get to this negative 3x to the third? Well, again, it's a 1, so what do I have to multiply 1 by to get to negative 3? And that would be negative 3. And x squared to get to x cubed would be x. And so now I'm going to repeat the process again. I take this negative 3x here, and I multiply it times this whole term. So negative 3x times x squared is going to give me that negative 3x cubed. Again, these should always be the same. Then I go negative 3x times 3x, which is a negative 9x squared. And then I'm going to go negative 3x times 2, which is a negative 6x. Again, I'm going to subtract. So I'm going to change it to addition, change those signs, and combine like terms. So again, these will cancel. Negative 4x squared plus 9x squared is 5x squared. And 5x plus 6x is 11x. And then I bring down the 1. Okay, so again, I'm bringing down this next part. And we repeat the process again. So now, I go again and I say, what do I have to multiply x squared by to get to 5x squared? And that would be 1 to get to 5 would be 5. I have an x squared, that's all I need, so I don't need to multiply that by anything. So now I take the 5 and I multiply it by the whole problem. And I get 5x squared. 5 times 3x is 15x. And then 5 times 2 is 10. Again, I'm subtracting this. So I'm going to change the sign, to change it to addition, and add the opposites. And so these cancel. And I get negative 4x minus 9. Now, I've brought down the last thing, so I'm done. So my answer is, when I divide this polynomial by this one, I get 2x squared minus 3x plus 5, and then I have a remainder. So this would be plus, and then I'm going to go negative 4x minus 9 over what I divided by, x squared plus 3x plus 2. And we're done. So it's a long process and it's kind of slow. But take it step by step, and It's not that hard. It's just a little bit of a long procedure. So now what I'd like you to do is to try this one. So I would like you to try x cubed minus x squared minus 2x plus 8 divided by x minus 1. So if you're doing this, watching the video, pause it, try it, and then come back and I'll take you through how to do this. So to do this, again, the x minus 1 goes on the outside, the x cubed minus x squared minus 2x plus 8 goes on the inside. What do we have to multiply x by to get to x cubed? That would be x squared. X squared times x is x cubed. X squared times a negative 1 is a negative x squared. Again, I'm going to subtract. So I change the sign, to change it to addition, add the opposite. Now in this case, this cancels and this cancels, so I get 0. So I'm going to bring down, in this case, the next two parts, because I have two terms here, and repeat the process. What do I have to multiply x by to get to negative 2x? That would be negative 2. Negative 2 times x is a negative 2x. Negative 2 times 1 is a positive 2. Again, it's addition, so I'm going to subtract, so I change it to addition. Add the opposites. Those cancel, and I get 6. And so my answer is x squared minus 2, and then my remainder is 6. So plus 6 divided by x squared minus 2. And we're done. So hopefully that worked well for you. I'd like you to try one more on your own. Again, pause the video, come back, see if you did it right. So this problem is x to the fourth plus 2x squared minus x plus 5 divided by x squared minus x minus 1. So if you set this up right, you would have put the x squared minus x minus 1 out front, and then inside x to the fourth. Because there is no x cubed, I would put a 0x cubed plus 2x squared minus x plus 5. To get from x squared to x to the fourth, I need to multiply by x squared. So that gives me, again, you multiply by everything, so x to the fourth minus x to the third minus x squared. Subtracting, so I change it to addition, change the signs, and add. And so we get opposites cancel. We get x to the third. 2 plus 1 is a positive 3x squared. And I bring down the next part. Okay? Now we repeat the process. So what do I have to multiply x squared by to get to x cubed? That would be x. X times x squared is x cubed. X times negative x is a negative x squared. And then a negative x. Change the sign, it's subtraction. So I'm going to change the sign to addition. Add the opposite. And so we get 4x squared. And the x's cancel in this case, and I bring down the plus 5. So I'm going to put a 0x here and a plus 5. And then one last time, we're going to go through this process. What do I have to multiply x squared by to get to 4x squared? So that would be a plus 4. 4 times x squared is 4x squared. And 4 times negative x is a negative 4x. And 4 times negative 1 is a negative 4. We're going to subtract, so we change it to addition. Change the signs. Add. Opposites cancel. And we get 4x plus 9. And so my answer is, what's up above? X squared plus x plus 4. Plus our remainder, 4x plus 9 over x squared minus x minus 1. And so that is long division with polynomials. Okay, again, process is long. Just be careful with things and it shouldn't cause you too much trouble. Synthetic division is what we're going to do next. And synthetic division is much easier. The problem with synthetic division is it only works when it's in the form of x minus k. So synthetic division can be used when you are dividing a polynomial, like we did, by another polynomial in the form of x minus k. So synthetic division, if we were to take, as an example, negative x cubed plus 4x squared plus 9, and divide that by x minus 3. So let's go through these steps. It says write the polynomial in standard form. So if these are not from highest to lowest power, then you want to change them so that they are. In this case, they are. Write down the coefficients of each term in the polynomial you are dividing. This is what we're dividing, this is what we're dividing by. So I'm going to write down these coefficients. So in this case, remember the coefficients are the numbers multiplied to the variables. So the first one would be negative 1. The second one would be 4. Now, we don't have an x. Again, you have to make sure to include a 0 if you skip powers. So since we skip from squared to a constant, we need to put a 0 up here, and then 9. Okay? And then the book will put a symbol, they'll write this. Okay? Then out front, write k to the left of your coefficients. So these are my coefficients. To the left outside here, I'm going to place k. Now remember, this says x minus 3, but it's x minus k. So again, this is opposite what it says, so k is 3. You've seen that I've left a space here. It's important to leave that space to do these problems. So step 2. After we've got this written out, bring down the leading coefficient. So we bring down our leading coefficient, which in this case is negative 1. And we multiply by k. So we're taking k and we're multiplying it by this negative 1. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And add, write the product under the second coefficient. So that product, again, product is when you multiply. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. I write that under my second coefficient. And then you add the second coefficient and the product you just wrote down. So we're going to add the 4 and the negative 3. And we get 1. And then we just repeat the process until we get to the end. So again, we take 3 times 1 is 3. Add 3. 3 times 3 is 9. Add, and you get 18. Now, after you got this, so we did step 2, and then we repeated the process till we got to the end, which is this. So if I rewrite those numbers here a little lower, we get this. And then here's what you have to remember. The last number is the remainder. So I kind of like to block off this last number. That's my remainder. The second to last numbers are constant, which is 3. Our third to the last number is the coefficient of the first degree term, which means that's got an x with it. And then the fourth term to the last is the coefficient of the second degree term, so this is x squared, and so on. So it just keeps going. So my answer then is remainder, constant, first power, second power. And so this would be negative x squared plus x plus 3 plus 18 divided by what we divided by, which was x minus 3. Much easier than long division. We could do it by long division, but this is much easier to do and much faster. The reason we can't use it all the time, it only works when we got it in the form of x minus k. So, let's look at another problem. Let's do x cubed minus 3x squared minus 7x plus 6 and divide that by x minus 2. So again, we're going to write down the coefficients. 1, negative 3, negative 7, 6. I didn't need to put a 0 because we didn't skip any powers. Then k in this case is 2, so that's where k goes. We bring down the first number, which is 1. We multiply 2 times 1 is 2. Add negative 1. 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. Add negative 9. 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. Add negative 12. And so my answer is, remember, again, I like to box that off. That last number is my remainder. Constant first power second. X squared minus x minus 9. Now you can put plus a negative 12 or you can put minus 12 over what we divided by, which is x minus 2. So it's real quick to do synthetic division. So I'd like you to try one now. So if you'll do this one, 2x to the third minus x minus 7 divided by x plus 3. So again, if you can pause the video, try this one, then come back and I'll go through how to do that. So if you set this up right, big thing was we've got 2. We skipped the x squared, so hopefully you remember the 0. That's important to do. Then negative 1, and then negative 7. And then outside, remember it's opposite this. It says plus 3, so k is a negative 3. Bring down the 2. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Add negative 3 times negative 6 is a positive 18. Add negative 3 times 17 is a negative 51. And so we get negative 58. That is our remainder. Constant first power, second power. So 2x squared minus 6x plus 17 minus 58 over x plus 3. So you can see how quickly it is to do instead of the long division. But again, you can only use it when it's in the form of x minus k. All right? So that's the long division and the synthetic. The last thing we're going to look at is what's called one of our core concepts, the remainder theorem. The remainder theorem says if a polynomial f of x is divided by x minus k, then the remainder is r equals, for remainder, f of k. Now, what that means is, in other words, if you plug k into f of x, the answer will be the remainder. Or you can use synthetic division with k to find the remainder. So if we look at a problem, let's say our f of x is 5x to the third minus x squared plus 13x plus 29, and they tell you find the value when x equals negative 4. So the old way to do this would be to plug negative 4 in here and get the answer. So you'd have to go 5 times negative 4 to the third minus negative 4 to the second plus 13 times a negative 4 plus 29. So if we were to take this out, that would be a negative 64 times 5 would be a negative 320, if I've done that right. And then we would have 16, so minus 16. 13 times a negative 4 would be 40 and 12, 52. So a negative 52 plus 29. So that would be negative 336 minus 52, which would be negative 388 plus 29 would be negative 359. Okay? So that would be one way to do it. What they're telling us to do is we can do synthetic division, and whatever remainder is will be the answer. So let's try it. So we're going to plug in now when it tells you when x is, so we're going to write down our coefficients. 5, negative 1, 13, 29. We didn't skip any power, so we don't need a 0. And then we're going to put, now, normally we do the opposite, but they're telling us what x is, which is our k value. So negative 4, we're going to put negative 4 there. So we just bring it down. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. Negative 21. 4 times 21 would be 84, and 2 negatives is a positive. So we get 7, 97, and negative 4 times 97, 28, carry the 2, 388, negative, and 29 from 388 gives us that negative 359, and that's our remainder. And so you can see how less work it took and a lot quicker. Okay? So we can do the same thing using synthetic division instead of substituting the number in. So I'd like you to try 2 of those. So the first one is 4x squared minus 10x minus 21 when x equals 5. So again, try this, come back, check to see if you did it right. I'll run through how to do it. So you can just pause it right here and try it. So if you did it correctly, we have 4, negative 10, negative 21. We bring the 5 out front, bring the 4 down. 5 times 4 is 20. Add 10. 5 times 10 is 50. 31. That's our remainder, so it should be 31. Okay? So this f of 5, if we plug 5 into that function, we should get 31. Makes it a real quick way to do it. So one more for you to try. Five x to the 4th plus 2x to the 3rd minus 20x minus 6 when x equals 2. So again, pause it, try it, and then come back and check it. So if you did it right, 5, 2, we don't have an x squared, so hopefully you put the 0 there, otherwise it messes you up. Minus 20 minus 6, and the 2 goes out front. Bring down the 5, 10, 12, 24, 24, 48, 28, 56, 50. So hopefully if I've done this right, that f of 2 would be 50 for that problem. Again, if we would have done a longhand, we'd have had to plug the 2 in. That would have been 2 to the 4th, which is 16 times 5, which is 80. That would be 2 to the 3rd, which would be 8 times 2, which would be 16. Minus 20 times 2 would be minus 40. And then minus 6. That would be 96. Minus 40 is 56. Minus 6 is 50. So you can see it the same way. It's just a faster way to find the answers. So hopefully this all makes sense. Your assignment for 4-3 is page 177, numbers 5 to 31. Make sure you show your work and turn that in if you do it all online, or you can just do it on paper and turn it in. So good luck on that.